Ravens vs. Texans score, takeaways. Lamar Jackson makes MVP statement in Christmas beatdown of Houston. The Baltimore Ravens have taken over first place in the AFC North, and Lamar Jackson made his statement for his third MVP award in a Christmas Day blowout of the Houston Texans. Jackson threw for 168 yards and 2 touchdowns, while rushing for 87 yards, and passing Michael Vick for the most rushing yards by a quarterback in NFL history in the blowout victory. Jackson passed Vick on a 6-yard run with 7:16 remaining in the third quarter to give him 6,110 rushing yards in his career, passing Vick's mark of 6,109. He had 87 of his yards on just 4 carries and amassed 73 yards on his first 2 carries, including a 48-yard touchdown run in the third quarter that put him within striking distance of Vick. Derrick Henry rushed for 147 yards as the Ravens finished with 251 rushing yards in the win. The Ravens defense also didn't allow a point, as the Texans' points came off a safety in the second quarter. C.J. Stroud finished 17 of 31 for 185 yards and an interception. Baltimore needs a win in Week 18 to wrap up the AFC North and the number 3 seed in the playoffs. Houston appears locked into the number 4 seed in the AFC with the loss, needing a lot to happen to improve its playoff standing. Why the Ravens won? The Ravens were just better than the Texans in every facet of this game, but the biggest discrepancy ended up being the rushing totals. Baltimore set the tone on the first possession by rushing for 51 yards on an 8-play, 75-yard touchdown drive to kick off the game, and never relented. Baltimore had 115 rushing yards to Houston's 8 after the first quarter, and the Ravens finished with 228 rushing yards to the Texans' 45. Henry had 143 rushing yards and Jackson had 87 on 4 carries. Just the Ravens doing what they do very well. Why the Texans lost? The Texans are just not on the same level as the Ravens and were underwhelming in a lot of areas. The defense allowed the Ravens to average 7.7 yards per play and 6.5 yards per carry when the starters were in. The Ravens also scored touchdowns on 4 of their 9 possessions when the starters were in. Stroud and the offense were shut out as well, with the only points coming via the defense as safety. The Texans' quarterback was inaccurate early in the game, which led to them getting into a hole. Houston was also 3 of 13 on third down and 0 of 2 on fourth down when the starters were in. Turning point. The Texans were facing a 4th and goal at the 4-yard line late in the second quarter, but failed to convert a touchdown and get back in the game. Stroud threw a pass underneath to Joe Mixon that only got 3 yards. The Texans turned the ball over on down, and that was the closest they got to scoring anything on offense. The Ravens responded with a 6-play drive that went 99 yards, capped with a Jackson 9-yard touchdown pass to Isaiah Likely that was an MVP-type throw. Baltimore took a 17-2 lead, and the game felt out of reach at that point.